As we leave Mitzrayim, we also leave the stories, the narrative for a little bit that we're so used to from Sefer Bereshis, from the beginning of Sefer Shmos. And right in the middle, this wonderful story, we have Matan Torah. Right in the middle of that, we're hit with parshas Mishpatim. And parshas Mishpatim is a parsha that deals mainly with the interpersonal laws between Jews, which make up the bulk of Seder Nezikin, of Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra. And sometimes it's very clear when we're learning Torah, when we're learning Chumash, we're learning Musar, we're learning Machshava, whatever it may be, what the purpose is to help us in our avodas Hashem. But sometimes it's a little less clear when we're learning Parshas Mishpatim, we're learning Seder Nezikin, Bava Kama, the intricacies of those interpersonal laws, exactly what the purpose is, exactly what it's supposed to bring us to. So Reb Yeruchum comments on this exact struggle. He writes, Im ein chachma ein yira. Im ein yira ein chachma. The Mishnah in Avos tells us that the entire purpose of learning Torah is to come to a greater understanding and a greater recognition of the Ribbono Shel Olam. And if you can't understand the Torah without Hashem, and more importantly, you can't understand Hashem without the Torah. That we sometimes think, you hear people say, I'm spiritual. I'm a very spiritual person. But they have no connection to Torah, no real connection to Hashem. They might be using the word spiritual. They might know God, whatever they may, define that as, but Hashem they don't know. Because it's impossible to come to Hashem, to an understanding of the Ribbono Shel Olam, without His Torah, without the instruction manual that He gave to us. So says Reb Yeruchum, the entire inyan of all of Limud HaTorah, B'limud HaTorah londim yashar es habari yisparach shemo, that through learning the Torah, through understanding the psukim and the gemaras and all the mishnayos and learning Torah, what we're really doing is we're coming to know Hashem on a very intimate level. And ein be'emes shum derech acheres. There's no real other way. You might have encountered, the Ribbono Shel Olam in your life, but to really know Hashem means to study Torah and to come to that understanding and that recognition of the Ribbono Shel Olam through his Torah. And he writes, it's very sad, there are many people who spend yamim and leilos, they spend their whole life learning Torah, and at the end of the day, lo yada'uni, they don't come out knowing the Ribbono Shel Olam, they don't come out with a greater understanding of who Hashem is. But says Rabbi Yeruchum a wonderful chiddush. So we understand part one is, in order to know Hashem, Hashem gave us the Torah. We learn the Torah, we come closer to the greater understanding and a deeper understanding of who Hashem is. Ve'achshav egaleh lochem. I'm going to tell you a wonderful sod gadol. Shekishem shebetorah bein adam lemakom, says Reb Yeruchum, the same way when it comes to our relationship with Hashem. Hine limud HaTorah hu limud yashar es habari yisparach shemo, that the learning of the Torah is meant to come and create a greater understanding, a deeper knowledge of the Ribbono Shel Olam. So too, belimud dine bein adam lechaveiro, when you start learning the halachos, the interpersonal laws between Jews, who limud Toras chaveiro, that if understanding machshava and musar and emuna and bitachon and all of the wonderful mesechtas that we have in Shas is supposed to bring us to a greater understanding of who the Ribbono Shel Olam is, of understanding on a greater and more intimate level of who Hashem is in our lives, then says Reb Yeruchum, Seder Nezikin, parshas Mishpatim. This week, when you're sitting in shul and you're hearing the Torah reading, the whole point is hu limud Toras chaveiro. V'limud Toras chaveiro bli limud es chaveiro. And to learn the Torah of Nezikin, to be proficient in all three bavas, to know every single nesivas and ktsos and wonderful Reb Shimon Shkap and Kilas Yagam, all the Torah in Nezikin that you learn in the yeshivas, but you don't know your friend, you don't know your chaver. So he says, Yishaer reik b'li Torah, Yishaer am haaretz ubor gamer. You'll end up with nothing. You'll end up in an empty pit. You learn the Torah, but it didn't go anywhere because you missed the main point. The same way by learning Torah bein adam lemakom, you're supposed to come to understand Hashem, you're supposed to come to understand your Creator. When you learn Nezikin, if you don't come to know your friend, you're missing out on the whole point. Kol Seder Nezikin, Eino ela derech lahavi es ha'adam lechavero. The whole point of these halachos, the whole point of this parsha is to bring us closer together. Tzarich ha'adam lilmod yasher es chaveru. Mahu adam. What is a person? Mahu tircha shel adam. Understand all that this person went through to acquire the things he has, to acquire his possessions, and now your ox goes and steps on his plate and breaks it. Now your, ox steps and a rock flies out and hits his vase, whatever the halacha may be, that we learn so many of those intricate details from this week's parsha. Mahu zesh kishemazikoto. You have to know and understand what your friend feels and his deepest emotions of when he worked so hard to acquire these possessions. And now you, because of your lack of shmira, your lack of watching out for your possessions, you went and destroyed something of his, whether you meant it, whether you didn't, it was on purpose, it was. But now you have to understand where you are in society, how that person feels, how that person comes and understands what just happened in his life. That's bava kama. That's the law. You build a fence too close to your friend's, to your friend's field, and now it's infringing on his place. You have to understand it's not just bava basra. It's understanding your friend. It's understanding everything he worked for. It's understanding what his feelings are. That's what we have to know. Rashi writes, "Havim istakel be'atzmcha ki'ilu ata ani," on the mitzvah of im keser talves ami. When we give tzedakah, Rashi writes, you have to know what it feels like to be an ani. It's not just to understand the halacha of how to calculate 10% of your meiser and 20. It's not that important. The halachas, if you don't understand who your friend is, what he's going through, when he opens up the fridge and there's nothing in there, when he has a hole in his shoe and he doesn't know, do I have enough money to patch it? When he's struggling for the tuition of his children, when he's struggling in his life to make a simcha, you give that tzedakah, it's not as important. The halachas, if you don't understand who he is, if you don't understand what he's going through, to know what your fellow Jew is feeling in that moment. And says Reb Yeruchum, he ends off with an incredible line. It's a scary line. He writes, Shoal in ha'olam. The world asks the question, why is it that we see people spend so much more time and effort and money in Bein Adam L'Makom than they do in the areas of Bein Adam L'Chaveiro? Why is it a person fills their day and they think, when am I going to learn Torah, and I'm going to daven, and I'm going to put on my tzitzis, and I'm going to wash nagelvas, I'm going to put my right shoe on my left shoe, tie my left shoe, tie my right shoe. I'm going to be involved in all these wonderful mitzvahs Bein Adam L'Makom. Ma'ashe'en kinal inyane Bein Adam L'Chaveiro. And when it comes to the lashon hara that we speak about one another, it barely crosses our mind. When it comes to the dirty look we give to our friend, the sina we have, the jealousy, the anger we have towards each other, the being mizalzel in another person's possessions, in another person's time, it doesn't even cross our mind. Not only do we not think about it, but we actively go and we're mizalzel in these halachas. Says Reb Yeruchum, what's the yesod? Why is that? Shahari sof kol sof, ha'adam yodeya mehabori yisparach, yoser mimashehu yodeya mechavero hasamuch etzlo. Says Rabbi Yeruchum, you know the answer? It's that we spend so much time, rightfully so, but we spend so much time trying to understand Hashem, trying to learn what it means to be an Eved Hashem, trying to understand what it means that there's a Borei Olam and He's our King, Avinu Malkeinu, and we spend so much time on that relationship when we know Hashem. And once we know Hashem and we understand Hashem and we have that connection to Hashem, so we're driven to do Netilas Yadayim, to go learn, to go daven, to do all the wonderful mitzvahs in Adam L'Makom that we have. But we know Hashem better than we know our friend sitting next to us. We understand Hashem, and we understand Hashem's wants and needs, if we can say that, better than we know the needs of our friend sitting right next to us. We look at Hashem and we say, you are great, you are amazing, L'cha Hashem HaGedula, but we don't turn to our friend and try and find the nekuda that makes them great, the nekuda that makes them amazing. He writes, it's embarrassing to us that our friend, who we mamish go through life with, our coworker, our friend, our sibling, our child, whatever it may be, we never leave each other's side. Ve'afal pichein zarhu lanu. He's a complete stranger. He's a complete stranger. V'lo yodim mimenu klal. We don't know him. We focus on Hashem. We learn about the emunah, about the bitachon. And because we know Hashem, we're driven to be mechabed the mitzvos that have to do with me and Hashem. We're driven to be good ovdei Hashem. But when we don't know our friend, and we don't understand what he's going through, and we don't put ourselves in his shoes, and we don't understand what the feelings and emotions of this person are, then we're not going to be driven to act accordingly. We're going to speak lashon hara, we're going to have anger, we're going to have jealousy, because we don't understand what the purpose of Seder Nezikin is. We learn parshas Mishpatim, we learn Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra, and we can give you all the wonderful chakiras and the yeshivas and all these wonderful, but we don't know our friend. We don't know the bein adam lechavera. We don't know the people next to us. So the same way that we can't come, im ein yira, ein chachma, ein chachma, ein yira, we can't come to know Hashem without first learning the Torah. And if we learn the Torah and we don't know Hashem, we're learning it wrong. The same thing is true by bein adam lechavera. We can't know our friend without first understanding Bava Kama, without understanding Bava Metzia, what it means to lose an object, what it means to have damages to your possessions. And once we learn that Torah, we have to make sure that we're coming closer to Achenu B'nai Yisrael. And once we know our friend, we can really understand the halachas. We can really understand how to connect to this incredibly important parsha, incredibly important seder in our Mishnayos and our Gemara that we have of Nezikin, to be able to establish not just a beautiful connection that we always need to strive for between us and Hashem, but also to strive for that bein adam lechavero, the connection between us and our fellow Jews.